I'm here to continue our discussion on the topic of financial shenanigans. This is going to be part 3 of our lectures on this very important and pertinent topic of financial shenanigans. In the previous 2 lectures of mine, I tried to give you a bit of introduction, or what you can say is the background of this particular topic of shenanigans, and I tried to tell you that when you hear or when you listen about the creative accounting, or what you talk as aggressive accounting, or accounting innovation into accounting, creativity into accounting, in negative aspect, that is nothing but it is very much part and parcel of financial shenanigans. So in this moving ahead on the same topic in this lecture of mine, that is part 3 of shenanigans, I'll basically be telling you about the most popular techniques of financial shenanigans, and the kind of real life examples and cases we have been witnessing on this particular topic, that I'll try to elaborate in front of you, and I'll try to tell you that, see, these shenanigans or these techniques have been resorted to by most of the top shot companies, but they were caught by the regulatory bodies, and appropriate action have also been taken against them. So we need to first understand that what are the established or what you can call as the most popular techniques of shenanigans, and then with the real life examples and cases I would try to supplement them, so that you can have a better understanding of what exactly this technique is all about, and the way it has been resorted to or implemented by some of the accountants, although it is not expected from them, but somehow under some pressure, under some circumstances which might not have been under their control, and that is why they must have resorted to. But yes, appropriate action have been taken against them. So I'll be telling you about the first in this series of techniques, the first technique, which is revenue recognition. And when I say revenue recognition, it is regarded as the most fertile dimension of shenanigans, where most of the accountants, they find it quite easy to resort to this way of creating or showing their creativity, or creating some positive impression about the company. And remember, when they go for recognizing the revenue, here it is nothing but their accounting, their discretion, the discretion provided by the accounting to the accountants. So it is up to you to recognize, although we have a standard now for this under IFRS, that this is the way you have to recognize your revenue. So this revenue recognition can be in terms of timing, or it can be in terms of quantum. So according to the requirement, corporate entities, they have been resorting to either timing or quantum, or both of them. So in this the series of telling you about the techniques, I'll first be telling you what exactly we mean by each and every technique, and then to exemplify, I would take, although there are number of examples, number of cases, if you search, you will find, but I would only be taking 1 or 2 cases just to exemplify the way it has been implemented and what was the action taken against the company. That is something which I would like to elaborate here. So revenue recognition, which is regarded as one of the most popular technique, and it may be in terms of timing, or it can be in terms of quantum, or both. Second is round tripping. The name itself is clarifying that there is something which is in pair it is coming. There is a trip, once you are going and you'll have to come back, just like you are booking your air ticket, and it is asking whether you are going for book your ticket for one side, or you are willing to book your ticket for round trip. So having said round tripping, I mean to indicate towards the nature of transaction, that once it has gone, once one aspect of this transaction has been executed, another aspect is there in store. Third one will be channel stuffing. I would be telling you about the channel stuffing, the way the channel is being stuffed with the supply of products or services, regardless of their demand in the market. And then under provisioning of expenses and losses or liabilities, you go for doing under provisioning or over provisioning or expenses, losses or liabilities, to create some kind of secret reserve, to create some reserves, or to show the loss making entity, so your company as a loss making entity. It can be cookie jar accounting, the way you are creating it is very popular technique when it comes to showcase the way companies have been creating secret reserve. And having said, I would like to especially give a mention to this, that creation of secret reserve is not at all allowed in accounting. So it is something which is against the established principle of accounting. You cannot create any secret reserve as an accountant, because you are going for financial reporting. You have to report everything to your stakeholders. So you should not hide. There should not be any game of hide and seek. And if you are doing so, you are a culprit, and obviously you'll have to, face the consequences. And then big bath accounting. I told you, I mean, the way companies are, taking a big bath, that if I'm incurring loss, why not to make it big and bigger? And then many other new techniques will come onto our way. So in this, series of, established techniques of, financial shenanigans, I would now be starting with the first one, revenue recognition, that is timing and quantum both. As I told you, it is one of the most vulnerable areas for financial shenanigans. And when I say it is most vulnerable, I need to acknowledge that it is the most easiest way of, resorting to shenanigans. And that is why it is the most resorted technique by shenanigans, and it is very popular technique when it comes to shenanigans. Although it is, in a way, it is quite easy for an auditor to catch hold of the people who are doing these kind of, you can say, misconducts or misbehaviors. So it is quite easy for them to identify. So the first point of suspicion which goes whenever we are suspecting some company, or we are on the way to detect the presence of shenanigans, revenue recognition is the most popular technique. And there is a study, established study of 347 alleged cases of fraudulent financial reporting by US companies in a period of 1998 to 2007. And what this study, culminated, what this study concluded, the study concluded that approximately or more than 60% of the companies which were, alleged for this resorting to shenanigans, they were actually, caught for making use of this overstating of revenue, or there was some kind of problem where either they played with the timing or the quantum of revenue recognition. So that is why, even the study indicates they took 347 companies which were, found, which were caught, in a way on paper they were caught that they resorted to these kind of techniques, and out of them approximately 60% belong to only one technique, that is revenue recognition. We all know that we have to recognize revenue. Earlier also, we had a concept of either going for, cash, concept, or cash basis of accounting or accrual basis of accounting. But now every company is supposed to follow the accrual basis of accounting. So when to recognize our revenue, how to recognize our revenue, that is something which is an established idea now. So if a company is, doing so even amid this clarity, then obviously, they are supposed to face the consequences, they are supposed to face the music. So revenue recognition, the first point is very much clear that it is the most resorted technique of, accounting financial shenanigans. And when we look into the cases, we would find that these shenanigans relating to revenue may either involve advancing or postponing revenue. So depending on your objective, your motive as an accountant, either you will have to, advance your revenue. Advance means I have to receive the revenue. I am eligible to recognize that revenue in year 2022. But somehow I have a pressure to increase my profit, because my performance is, my salary is linked with my financial performance of my company. My incentives are linked to that. So in order to, receive my incentive, or in order to have some, benefit out of it, motives I have already explained to you. What can be the possible motives for an accountant for resorting to these kind of shenanigans? So according to your requirement, either you will go for advancing. If you have to inflate your profit, you will go for advancing your revenue. And what if you are on your way towards big bath accounting? You feel that you have to show losses in your books of accounts this year. You have made up your mind. So what you are trying to do, you are trying to postpone your revenue, and you are trying to advance your expenses. So postponing revenue and advancing your expenses, that is another technique. So either one technique or a combination of two shenanigan techniques you may resort to, I mean an accountant may resort to. So we will have to detect when we are in the role of a detector, or when we are going there or investigating the books of accounts as an auditor. We have to keep an eye on this very trend, whether the accountant has resorted to advancement of revenue or postponing of revenue, or a combination of these two. And remember, the motive is very much clear, because you are recognizing your revenue, and not only that, it also involves recording sham revenue. When I say sham revenue, it means it's not at all there. Sham trade, wash trade, I'll tell you what is that wash trade, what is that sham trade. But here we are talking about sham revenue. This sham revenue is nothing but it is something which is not at all into the picture, and you are trying to show that revenue. You are trying to consider it to be your income. You are reporting, rather I would say misreporting to your shareholders or to the stakeholders that this is your revenue. But the ground reality is that it is not at all your revenue. So my dear learners, when we talk about this first and the foremost technique of financial shenanigan, that is advancing or postponing revenue, it means the accountant is now playing with the concept of revenue recognition and trying to somehow find some flexibility, and they are not using this flexibility, they are trying to abuse this flexibility, which in any case should not be allowed, and is not allowed, of course. It is not allowed, but we need to understand, if a company is resorting to this way, what can be the possible way they may enter into this kind of misconduct or this kind of misrepresentation of books of account. So you must have now understood what is the way of playing with the revenue recognition. So either you are playing with the timing, you are advancing or postponing, or you are playing with the quantum. You can increase or decrease the amount of revenue according to your objective. So depending upon the motive of the accountant who has resorted to this shenanigan, the composition and direction of this technique may differ. Now let us take a real life example, a real life case. It is a case from United States of America, where a company called Lucent Technologies, and remember, it's a Fortune 500 company, the most reputed one. This company was investigated and fined by the SEC, that is Securities and Exchange Commission, which is a counterpart of our SEBI. Like in our country, to regulate capital market, we have Security and Exchange Board of India. In US, they have SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC. And this SEC, what it did, it actually investigated and fined this company for what? They were fined for improperly recognizing revenue approximately to the extent of $1.148 billion of revenue and $470 million in pre-tax income during the fiscal year 2000. So it's an old case, but sufficient enough to make you understand the way this company might have resorted to this kind of shenanigan. So this company, which was actually you can call as a blue chip company, a Fortune 500 company having that high of reputation, it was investigated and obviously fined for their wrong deeds, their misconduct, and see the extent of improperly recognizing the revenue, which was you can say hovering $1.148 billion. This was the quantum. So obviously they might be under some pressure, some motivation, some flexibilities. And besides other violations, what they were caught for, this company recorded more than $350 million in equipment sales to two distributors. So you are recording your sale of equipment to only two distributors with the promise that equipment could be returned if no buyers could be found. So you are actually selling your equipments under GSARB, that is goods sent on approval or return basis. So your goods are being sold out on this condition that if there is an approval from the customer, obviously it is sold out, otherwise it may be returned. So there is a possibility of the supplier to return, distributor to return the equipment to you. And ultimately what happened? The equipment was returned to Lucent as expected, but only after the fourth quarter was closed, which means when your purpose was served. Fourth quarter means you are talking about the date of your preparation of financial statement. So in the after the fourth quarter was closed, what happened? The equipments were returned to the company, and this way what this company could do, this company was able to report higher revenue, but obviously and of course it was in violation of generally accepted accounting principles. And what I am telling you, it is very much there on the website of SEC. It is available there. You can also go and have a look, that this is the way this company tried to play with the principle of revenue recognition and inflated its income for that specific year in which it was caught. So goods sent on approval or return basis is of course allowed. It's not wrong. What is wrong is the intention. Now the question comes, how to identify the intention? Do we have any technology to identify the intention? Can we identify the intent of a person? Can it be proved? Now it's a matter of the proceedings, the court proceedings, the legal proceedings, and they obviously must have undergone that procedure. There is a team under SEC which will actually go for inquiring, detecting, and if they are found guilty, obviously appropriate action was taken. So they were fined for that. And obviously, if there is something wrong, sooner or later it is going to be caught. So an accountant need to understand that when you are resorting to some kind of shenanigans, obviously there is a complete possibility of you being traced. So it is always suggested to the accountants that they should not, in any case, under any pressure, under any circumstances, they should not resort to such kind of techniques. It cannot be justified in any manner. So I told you about what can be the possible way of resorting to a shenanigan technique of recognizing revenue in terms of quantum and timing, along with a real life example, the way a company was caught and the action was taken. Now I shall move on to the second technique, which is another important technique, and I told you at the very outset while introducing the topic with you, round tripping. The name itself, round tripping. At times my learners are asking me, sir, I understand the shenanigans, but when it comes in the form of a case letter, they are asking me to identify what kind of shenanigan has been resorted to. I get confused between round tripping and recognition of revenue or cookie jar accounting or channel stuffing. Remember, my dear learners, all these techniques are entirely different to each other. So you'll have to first understand what is round tripping. The term itself is indicating that there has to be a pair of transaction, and that transaction must be of same price, same value and same quantum. So what is round tripping? When you are selling goods or other asset, it can be goods, it can be any other asset, it can be any object in which you are dealing, even it can be some kind of equipment, it can be some kind of goods or whatever products you are dealing with. And this transaction is being executed under a tacit agreement. There is a tacit agreement. On record it cannot be done. So there is a tacit agreement to buy it back later on. You have to buy it back at almost the same price and the same and with the same quantity, and eventually resulting into artificial boost to the revenue. So motive is what? Suppose I am giving you an example just to make you understand about round tripping. Suppose me and you, we decided to go for playing a game like this, where I'll try to showcase what can be the round tripping. I wish to book profit for the current financial year. I don't have any customer. I sold out those goods to you without any payment on credit. So my goods are being sold in my account and you have to show the purchase. So in my account the sale is being recorded, in your account purchase is being executed. You have entered. So you made me your creditor and I made you my debtor. And for this financial year my job is done. In the next financial year, what you will do? You will return the same goods to me. You will sell out same goods to me at the same price or almost at the same price. And eventually what will happen? There is a cross transaction. I was debtor for the same amount, I became creditor for the same amount. Eventually, or practically speaking, there is no payment from either side. So neither I paid nor you paid, and ultimately what happened? We were trying to help each other, obviously, and of course in a wrong way, and purpose was to artificially boost the revenue of this company. So this can be a small example of round tripping. A round trip, what is the motive behind round tripping? The very basic aim of this round tripping is to artificially boost your revenue by selling some goods, assets or securities to another entity with an understanding to buy it back later on at the same price, or when we say almost the same price, in order to ensure that it should not be detected, somewhere they try to change the value by very insignificant or very nominal value, so that auditors should not catch hold of this, that for the same transaction you were showing a sale, and for the same transaction, for the same value and with the same company, you are showing the purchase. So round tripping is being executed with an objective of artificially boosting the revenue. You have to boost your revenue artificially. Having said artificially means it's not at all your revenue. You are playing with the figures, and for that a company has resorted to the this technique of round tripping. And this transaction actually lacks any economic justification. It has no justification except that of increasing the revenue of the parties involved. So the parties which are involved, they are trying to somehow create revenue by their wrong deeds, and this transaction lacks any kind of economic justification. They have only one justification, which is not acceptable at all in the corridors of accounting or as per the rules or framework of GAAP or IFRS. So accounting doesn't permit it, but still some companies are doing so. Now let us take another case from the same country. Dynagi Incorporates, again another Fortune 500 company. It was investigated and fined by SEC for overstatement of its energy trading activities resulting from round trip, or what they call it as wash trade. When I say wash trade, there is some kind of washing going on. One transaction is being executed, and to wash it out, to wipe it out, to eliminate it, you have another set of transaction with the same value, with the same party and with the same quantity. So what they are doing, they are having simultaneous pre-arranged buy-sell trades. When you have to exemplify it, you should say simultaneous pre-arranged buy-sell trade. So it is simultaneous going on, it is a pre-arranged transaction, and both the aspects of transactions are there, both type of transactions are there. One is buying, another is selling. And what this company did, they had simultaneous pre-arranged buy-sell trades of energy with the same counterparty. Imagine, with the same counterparty they were having this kind of pre-arranged buy-sell trades of energy, and at the same price and volume, and over the same terms and conditions were the same, price was the same, quantity was the same, resulting into what? Neither profit nor loss to either of the transacting party. So they were neither incurring any loss, nor they were acquiring any profit. Ultimately what happened? Through these round trip or sham trades, what company did? Company misled its investors about the volume of their trading activity, which was not the reality. So again, another way of window dressing, another way of committing fraud, another way of resorting to their wrong deeds and somehow trying to mislead the investors and make huge money out of the investors' hard-earned money, which is not at all tolerable, which should not be acceptable. But yes, the ground realities, it was there. Although the company was caught and fined. Again, this case is also available on the website of SEC, you can find it out. Third technique after round tripping, the third technique which is in row is channel stuffing. Now at times students ask me, sir, how to recall it? Remember, channel stuffing means you are talking about channels of distribution, and stuffing means you are trying to stud them, stuff them, overload them, load them with the unexpected supply, unwanted supply of the product. Your supplier, your distributor is not asking for the product. I am manufacturer, you are my distributor. You are not asking for a huge quantity of supplies from my side, but I am forcing you to receive the supplies. So I am trying to stuff you with the greater quantum of my supplies. This is called channel stuffing. So whenever in any example or in any caselet you find this situation where the one party is trying to supply in excess of demand to the distributor, then obviously it is nothing but a clear case of channel stuffing. So what they are doing here, they are shipping goods to the dealers in excess of genuine demand from the end users by extending lucrative incentives. They are giving them some offers, lucrative incentives, some discounts and whatnot. So many promises are being made, and with that promise they are trying to overload, they are trying to stuff their channel with the excess supply of goods. So genuinely market doesn't demand for that much, but you are trying to overload your channels. And channel stuffing is a name given to the deceptive business practices used by a company. Remember, it is not at all a legal term. Whatever terms I'm using here in terms of financial shenanigan techniques, they all are not acceptable words in the corridors of accounting and finance. But since these are negative words, we should know that what is the way they may resort to mislead their investors, to misrepresent the financial position and financial performance of a company. Ultimately, what is the goal in channel stuffing? Your objective is to inflate your sales and earning figures. You are going to come up with some IPO or FPO and you want to create a positive impression about the company in the market. And to inflate your position, you are inflating your sales, you are inflating your earning figures, so that people should think that company is performing very well. And meanwhile, by the time people will come to know about this situation, your job is done, your public issue is over, your shares are subscribed. So this is the motive. Always remember, every technique which an accountant is resorting to is having some hidden motive. They have some agenda to implement, and accordingly they are trying to do so. But remember, they are deliberately sending retailers, those quantum of goods to retailers, to their distribution channels, of more products than they are able to sell. So you are trying to supply, more products, more quantum of products than they are actually able to sell. And the channel partners, they are given some kind of flexibility to return the goods later. They are given some incentives. They are given some credit facilities, they are given some extra discount, or it can be anything which may motivate the channel. So depending on their negotiation with the channel partners, the company may resort to this kind of technique. And the channel partners may also be assured an agreed return, that yes, you will be getting a return on their investments in inventory by the way of a side agreement, another side agreement which is being executed by the marketing department. So in connivance with so many departments, they actually resort to these kind of shenanigans. Obviously one person cannot do, and if one person is doing, then obviously absolute power is vested with the person, because absolute power corrupts a person absolutely. So we have to understand that what company can do for the, do under these techniques. For channel stuffing, in the next lecture I'll tell you some more interesting cases where the top shot companies, they resorted to these kind of techniques and ended up with the kind of embarrassment which they are not supposed to face. So with this I'm ending this part of my lecture. I hope you must have enjoyed this aspect of financial shenanigans. Thank you so much.